I'm going to use Illustrator to create my clock. It does cost money to have Adobe Illustrator. It's based on a paid subscription. So if you don't have Adobe Illustrator and you don't want to pay the money for Adobe Illustrator, a free option is called Inkscape. In this course, I've chosen to show you how to use the elements that come with the Videoscribe library and some other options like Pixabay to get some free additional elements for your Videoscribe. I know not everyone uses Adobe and doesn't pay the subscription for Adobe, but if you are interested in learning how to create images for Videoscribe using Adobe Illustrator and you'd like more detail, please let me know, because if I get enough students interested in this, I am more than happy to create an entire course around creating Illustrator images for Videoscribe. For now, I'm just going to give you a taste to let you know that this is another option you have available if you're using Videoscribe and you need to create your own image. I'm starting off with a canvas that's 1920 by 1080 pixels because this works well with Videoscribe. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my shapes icon here. I'm going to click on it, double click on it, and pick the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold shift down because that creates a perfect circle. And there we go. Let go. I'm going to click on the selection tool here. Let's just move that over. And I want the stroke, which is this thin outline of the circle here. I want it to be a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go up here where it says stroke. And let's make it 5. Let's make it the size of 5. So right now this frame is in black, which you can see here. If I wanted to change it to red, I could change it to any of these colors here. I'll stick with black for now. And you can see to the left of this framing color option, to the left is the fill option. So the fill for this circle. So I'm going to open that up. If I wanted the fill of that circle to be red, it changes to red. I don't want a fill, so I'm going to click here for none, and I'll click off of that. So as you can see, by adding this circle, I now have my first layer with the ellipse image within it. Next, to make it more obvious that it's a clock, I'm going to add numbers. So instead of using the text tool to type out my numbers, I'm going to actually draw them out using my Wacom tablet pen. I'll zoom in, so I'll hit the Z and then click, click, and scroll that up. Okay, I'm going to hit V, which will take me back to the selection tool and move this over. And I'm going to click on the pencil tool here. So I'll write out 1, 6, and now let's write 9. So you'll see there's more space here than there is up here. So I'm going to grab the 3 and I'm going to hold down shift and grab the 9, and I'm going to use my down arrow to move those both down. Illustrator gives you so many options when it comes to creating images. It's really quite amazing. It does take some time to learn, and there is a learning curve. Even if you're coming from a Photoshop background and using Illustrator, there are a lot of similar tool options, but different ways to use them, which is quite interesting. Also, if you were to choose this T here to create your numbers as text, that would introduce some problems when bringing this image over into Videoscribe as an SVG file. We're not going to look at that today, but again, if you are interested in me creating an Illustrator course that would work with Videoscribe, then let me know, because in that course I would be more than happy to go over how to work with text specifically coming from Illustrator and bringing that into Videoscribe. Okay, So let's click off of those numbers. And I just realized that the 12 is at the top, not a 1. So I've moved the 2 up there, and I'm gonna click Shift and hold the 1, and we'll just move that over a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now I can drop down the layer panel here, and you'll see each element that's been created so far. So I want to copy this 1. So I've got it highlighted here, you can see. I'm going to hold down Option on a Mac, and I'm going to drag it up 1. Now I've got a copy of that. So you can see here that it is highlighted in blue. I'm going to, because it's already highlighted, move it over and down. There we go. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the 2. So I'm going to hit the 2. So I'm going to click on the 2 here. So that's highlighted. I'm going to hold down Option Alt, the Option Alt key, and drag that down so that I've got a copy of the 2. You can see it's highlighted there in blue. I'm going to use the arrow keys. And if you hold down Shift while you use the arrow keys, it lets you move these elements around much faster than if you were just using the arrow keys. So that's what I've done. Okay, let's go back to the pencil tool and draw out a 4. I'm going to speed up the rest of this because you've got the idea of how to draw these out. You don't need to see me draw out every single number. Okay, so to indicate a quarter of time here, I'm going to show you the quickest and easiest way to do that. Let's go up here and lock this layer, this clock layer. Let's create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon there. A new layer has been created on top that we're going to be working with. You can see whatever we create now will show up on the second layer because this is highlighted here. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool. I've got my fill now set to red with no stroke. Hold down Shift, and I'm going to pull this out to create a new circle. Go to the selection tool, move that on top of the clock. I'm going to hold Shift and just drag the sizing down. There, I want this red circle to be around the same size as the clock. It doesn't have to be perfect, so that's good. Okay, now I'm going to turn the eyeball off of the clock layer so it's not distracting. Next, what I'm going to do is go up here, click on the direct selection tool. I've clicked on the red circle as well so that it is selected, and I'm going to click down on the canvas and drag a little rectangle just over top of this anchor point here. This anchor point here. You'll see this has been selected because it is, if you look closely, filled in, whereas these other anchor points do not have a fill. So this is the selected anchor point. I'm going to click delete, and now I've created myself a half circle. But I want a quarter circle. So I've got my direct selection tool clicked, and I'm going to hover over and create a rectangle over this point here and move it into the center of the circle. Let go, and it's created this shape. Next, I'm going to go up to the pen tool, right click on it, and go down to the anchor point tool and select that. Now I'm going to go down to this point here and delete that. And there we go. We have a quarter circle. Click the selection tool, turn the clock back on. Now I think this would look better if it were up in this area. I'm going to hold on to it and drag it and hover over this point here so that I can drag it around that way. And then we will move it over. I'm going to bring the size of this down just a little bit by holding Shift and dragging. There we go. Okay, so there we go. I have a clock that indicates a quarter of the time. And let's go up to File, Save As. Let's call this quarter clock. And we'll go into my Videoscribe folder here. I'm going to save it as an Illustrator file first so that I can go back to it anytime I need to. So we'll click Save and we'll hit OK. I'm going to click Open in Photoshop and I'm going to click on the quarter clock. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to save this in Photoshop as a PNG file. There we go. And save, push OK. And that's saved. I prefer to draw images in Illustrator because I really like the intuitiveness of it and the tool options and so on. But in Illustrator, you can't save images as PNG files. And there's a whole lot of information and learning that goes into creating Illustrator images and bringing them into Videoscribe and drawing them from scratch. In the meantime, I will show you what it will look like when I bring in this image that I've created, this clock, into the Scribe.